Identified, O'Brien, another difference is
he had access to that information. It goes from 15 to 35.
Another difference is that in the United States now, given the circumstances, the Democrats know they have to go and talk to the Republicans to get anything done. Here, the thought of Labor talking to the Liberals or the coalition doesn't seem to occur to them, and on the banks particularly, they both seem to be, as Annabelle Crabb said, the only difference is one has a plan and the other has a package, but they both say the same thing, and yet they're not talking.
Well, they don't need to here because they think they've got a loose alliance with the Greens and the Independents. Over there we've got a separation of the executive government from the Congress. They don't control at all a very, very stroppy House of Congress, so that's why they've...
But even when they essentially agree, it seems to be more about political advantage than about the policy itself.
I think that's very true. I mean, obviously, look, Joe Hockey made the astute calculation that the RBA was going to meet and probably put up rates. Even if it didn't, it's likely the banks would put up rates unilaterally, and it was going to be a week of bank profits. Stitch that all together and you've got a terrific political opportunity, which he grabbed. And then his own shadow minister said, well, what are you going to do? I've got to actually do something? Yes. I mean, that was that meeting which was wrongly characterised as him being rebuked or whatever the term was. Yeah. But he said, all right, well, I'll come up with something. And he came up with something that essentially Wayne Swan had been talking about since the previous RBA meeting early in October. The difference is he's proposed it straight away and Swan still isn't ready with his.
But if you look at Julia Gillard, going back many years, she's always been very tribal. She's a real Labor tribal leader. And Tony Abbott happens to be much the same. Tony Abbott's view is the role of the Liberal Party is to criticise the Labor Party, not to criticise the Greens, not to criticise the banks, to criticise the Labor Party. And so you've got those two traditions, and certainly the opposition's not going to make the first move, and if the government doesn't make the first move, I agree with Brian, the government thinks they can get away with talking to the Independents and the Greens, but I would expect this to continue perhaps for up to 3 years.
Someone needs to get on the front foot here, because it is true that you do need more competition because there's been greater concentration, partly because during the global financial crisis, the way in which the government structured the costs for those guarantees to the banks, it was cheaper for the big banks than the little banks. So natural enough, they grew. And one of the consequences is it's a great pity there's so much focus on housing and housing mortgages. The real people who've been hurt are small businesses here. The housing interest rates have gone up, or the spread, as they call it, for the banks have gone up by about 110% basic points, I should call it, for housing, but it's gone up by 420 basic points for the loans to small businesses. It's also gone up more for credit cards and personal loans than for housing. So that really you do need a lot more competition, not just to bring down not just to contain the housing ones, but to bring them down for small business. That's a real impediment. That's a very big increase for small business.
Based on what you say, that you probably agree here with Andrew Robb, who seems to give faint praise to what Joe Hockey's saying. Here's Andrew Robb.
By itself, it will not fix the problem. None of these issues or none of these 9 points will by themselves fix the problem. Well, Joe and I get on very well, I've got to say. We work together, hand in glove through the campaign. We talk to one another every second day. He and I are good friends and good professional colleagues. So there's certainly no disquiet there between us.
The cynics among us, ready to go. But the point that he makes is it doesn't by itself fix the problem. And it certainly doesn't fix the problem for small business people.
And exactly, I think Brian's point was a very good one, and I don't think Joe Hockey's legislation will resolve anything at all. And there's got to be a reason why Wayne Swan has been slow in coming forward with his. Prime Minister says he's been methodical. They might be right, but these are sensitive things. Because I go back to something that Gerard said, which was Tony Abbott's view of his job, which was to attack the Labor Party. One case in point, there was a meeting in Forbes where the Murray-Darling Basin Authority was giving a briefing to the town. There were 5 senior members of the opposition in attendance. Abbott, Barnaby Joyce, John Cobb, Simon Birmingham and Senator Nash. They were just there to be there, that's all. And they made no great contribution to the briefing at all. When that was over, Barnaby Joyce sped in a car off to Dubbo where there was another meeting on water. It's that sort of massive full-court press attack on issues that is causing the government a lot of problems. And the opposition doesn't have to do anything, just has to be there.
Well, if the opposition, sorry, if the government had someone there, they could have pointed out that what the Basin Authority are doing is implementing the Howard government's National Water Initiative from 2004, which the National Farmers Federation fully supported, the National Party fully supported, and the 2007 Water Act. That's all that the authority has done. And Gillard's running away from it
But
now.
the matter's badly handled. Some of these matters are badly handled politically, that you don't have senior government figures up front explaining this from the start. And it's often left both in immigration and in water to departmental officers who are not very good at this,
Well, it's
don't
not
handle
their
it well,
job
don't
either.
have the authority, and then from then the ministers come in, then that looks defensive. Some of the politics of this isn't good, but that starts off in the Rudd government. It's just continued in the Gillard government.